Hello there and welcome to absolute value equations. How to solve equations when we have the absolute value symbol that we get to contend with. In this lesson, at the end of it, you should be able to say to yourself, I can solve absolute value equations and find the two possible solutions to this equation. So very important. When we're dealing with absolute value, you have two possible solutions that you need to be looking for. Well, exactly what is absolute value? Absolute value, we can identify it when we are using this symbol, which is basically two lines. And in the middle of the lines, we have some numbers. So what this is saying is if I add those up and when I draw a number line, absolute value means distance away from zero. Distance away from zero. Now we have, if we use our number line here and the absolute value of 3, I can go 3 places to the right. And that's 3. However, what I need to remember is that I can also go 3 places to the left. And that puts us on the spot of -3. So when I ask you, what is the absolute value of 3? The absolute value of 3 is both 3 and -3. And this should be separated by a semicolon. 3 and -3, because we're talking about the distance away from 0. Now that we've refreshed ourselves on what absolute value means, let's take a look at how to solve some problems. When we're working with absolute values, it's almost the same as solving any type of regular equation. The difference is the first step you need to do is to get the absolute value, whatever is inside those symbols, get the absolute value portion all by itself. All by itself. That means in a problem like this, I'm going to keep this part. And I'm going to do my addition or subtraction. So I'm going to combine like terms, and you're fabulous at that. So -5 plus 8 is equal to 3. Well, now I need to identify my two possible options for 3. So x is equal to +3 and x is equal to -3. So after we get the absolute value portion of the problem all by itself, we look at the value that's on the right side and we keep it. So we keep the original value as written. And then, so that's kind of an A, and B, then we write it again making, uh, making it negative. So we write it again, adding the opposite sign. So adding the opposite sign. In this example, we have a positive 3, so I am going to add the opposite, which is a negative. So the two possible solutions for this particular problem is x is equal to 3 or negative 3. All right, let's look at another problem. This one is a tiny bit bigger. There's a little bit more to do. So I notice I have my absolute value symbols. -4 is equal to 20. So I need to isolate the absolute value portion of the problem. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides of the equation. And I'm left with 2x plus 6 is equal to 24. So I brought this entire portion down. Now I have to do a little bit more math than I did in the previous problem. So I'm going to rewrite the problem 2 times. The first time I am rewriting it exactly as it's written. 2x plus 6 equals 24. Then I'm going to write it a second time. 2x plus 6 is equal to negative 24. So notice that these two numbers are the opposite of each other. A positive number, positive 24, and a negative 24. Now I will go ahead and solve this using the steps that I know for solving equations. I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. 24 minus 6 is 18. Bring my 2x down. I'm going to divide by 2. So x is equal to 9. Cancel out my 2's, 18 divided by 2 is 9. So one solution for x is positive 9. Now I'm going to come over to the other problem, and I go through the same steps. I'm going to subtract, excuse me, subtract 6 from both sides. Bring down the 2x, and negative 24 minus 6 is negative 30. I have to isolate the variable, so I divide by 2. I end up with x. Negative 30 divided by 2 is negative 15. So x is equal to 9, and x is equal to negative 15. These are the two possibilities that x can be. Let's look at another problem. This particular problem, it appears that we need to distribute. And if we were dealing with parentheses, that would definitely be true. But we're not. These are the absolute value symbols. So I know right away I need to get this part of the problem, the x plus 7, all by itself. However, I'm multiplying this by negative 3. Okay. Well, if I'm multiplying, the opposite of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide by negative 3. The beautiful thing about this math is you can divide by exactly what's there. There's no guessing. So those cancel each other out, and we are left with the absolute value of 7 is equal to positive 4. Negative 12 divided by negative 3 is positive 4. I will now take this problem, I will rewrite it twice. X plus 7 is equal to 4, and then x plus 7 is equal to negative 4. And then I will solve for each side. So minus 7. So x is equal to negative 3. And over here, I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. X is equal to negative 11. So my two possible answers for x are negative 3 and x is equal to negative 11. Well, you might be asking yourself, good heavens, when will there be two possible values for x in real life outside of math class? Well, think about the temperature each day. If we look at the high and we look at the low as far as coldest and the warmest that it became for one day, those are two possible values for x in that particular setting. If we look at the stock market, so every night on the Business Review, if you watch the news, they talk about how high the Dow was and how low it was. So those are some swings that in one day, the same index, the Dow Jones, can have two different numbers. That's an example of using absolute value. Now, it's very important in our math, and what I want you guys to understand is that while we can work on problems like we just did, like this one, where it's just a math problem and we crank it out and find our answers and we move on, math is based on life. And being able to take that information that we need and to use it to make sense of what is happening around us is a very valuable tool. So when you see these problems, these word problems, that is where you're taking that knowledge and you're using it in a way that relates to real life in some fashion. So let's take a look at this problem. So the minimum and maximum temperature on a cold day in Gresham can be modeled by the following equation. 2 times the absolute value of x minus 6 plus 14 is equal to 38. What are the minimum and maximum temperatures for this day? Oh, cool. All right, so I'm going to rewrite the problem really quickly down here so we can all watch and take notes. So as I'm looking at this, I see I have some multiplication of an absolute value portion, and this is the part I need to get by itself. And I also have some addition. So similar to solving 1 and 2 step equations, I'm going to do the addition and subtraction first. So I'm going to combine my like terms. And 38 minus 14 is 24. So I still have the multiplication piece that I need to undo so that I can get the absolute value by itself. So I'm going to divide by 2. What I do on one side of the equation, I do on the other. And I'm left with the absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to 12. 24 divided by 2 is 12. I am going to rewrite the problem. X minus 6 equals 12, and x minus 6 equals negative 12. And I have two different problems here. So I'm going to solve for the first one. So x is equal to 18, and as I work the other problem, x is equal to -6. That was a very cold day in Gresham. So the highest temperature, temp, and I'm going to call this Fahrenheit. The highest temp was 18 degrees Fahrenheit, and the lowest temp was -6 degrees Fahrenheit. It was a very cold day, and if it was -6, I'm sure the east wind was blowing. So this is a live example of using absolute values. So remember, when we're solving for absolute values, we need to get the absolute value portion of the problem by itself. We check to see if there's any addition or subtraction on the problem, and we solve that part of the problem first. Then if there's any multiplication, we undo that by dividing to come up with our new problem. We then rewrite the problem 2 times, once using rewriting it the way it's written, and the second time taking the answer and making it negative. And then we solve for our variable to come up with our 2 different possible values for x. And voila! You are now able to solve absolute value equations and find the 2 possible solutions to each of these problems. So well done, well done. Please go through the regular lesson in the curriculum, and when you are done with that, please go to the quiz and move forward and take that quiz and stay on pace. And if you have any questions, please let me know as soon as possible so that I can help you and you are able to move forward and be successful in this class. Thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.